There is a strong connection between our gut and our brain. There's a big nerve, the vagus nerve, that connects our gut to our brain, and the microbes in our intestines influence not only our physical health and how we digest things, but our mental health and other areas of health. This graphic on the right shows a whole bunch of things that it turns out that our gut and different things happening in our lives and how they affect our gut then have connections to things happening in our brain and how those affect our lives. So what happens? We eat food. Some of those foods, called prebiotics, that are high fiber, vegetable based diets, help promote healthy bacteria in our gut. Those bacteria in our gut are called probiotics. And you can actually introduce some through things like yogurt or kombucha and other probiotic foods that have good bacteria in them. And those create chemicals called postbiotics that get absorbed and even go up to our brain and promote better mental health, as well as other areas of better health. So we've got prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. And that's important for us to understand money in the gut-brain connection. Prebiotics, high-fiber foods, would require us to provide them to everybody, and to make money off of it, you have to get high-fiber foods sold to lots of people and provide them to lots of people. That would mean changing our food system. We would need to eat more local, fresh food, and people would need time or money to prepare it or pay local food service to prepare it. So it would be really good for local industry, local jobs, local businesses, local small farmers. Not quite so good for megacorporation monoculture farming, not so good for fast food, not so good for processed foods that we send all over the world. It would require some major changes in how we eat and how we prepare food and how we pay people and what we pay people for. And there's not big money to be had in any one business or by big investors in prebiotics. That's just eating healthier food. Probiotics, those are the good bacteria in your gut. Now, there is money to be made in selling things like yogurt, kombucha, kefir, fresh sauerkraut, fresh kimchi that have these probiotics in them. But again, it's not a big profit margin. There's more money to be made in supplements, like selling dehydrated probiotics that people can take in a pill or a powder, and the health food industry and the health supplements industry is already doing that. Whether the research on it is complete or not, it's actually better for them if the research isn't complete and they can just make generalized claims and convince people to spend lots of money on things that may or may not actually help them. There's also money in genetically engineering microbes that you could say put in a supplement, because then you can patent those microbes and sell them for more money and sell them as medicine that insurance can pay for. So there is some money in probiotics, especially if you genetically engineer them. Postbiotics. There's even more money in figuring out what chemicals are these things making, and can we manufacture and sell this chemical as a drug? So microbes make beneficial compounds. Those beneficial compounds so lactobacillus, for example, can make a bunch of different beneficial compounds that send signals through our gut and help regulate our immune system and influence our brain and all sorts of good things for us. But if you could take one of these and manufacture it in a patentable drug and sell it to people with their insurance paying for high-priced pharmaceuticals, there's a lot more money to be made. So, research has grown exponentially since 2000. There are now billions of dollars being spent on researching the gut-brain connection. Almost all of that money is going into things like engineered probiotics that are patentable and postbiotics, drugs that are patentable. Only a very small amount of the money goes into public health efforts with prebiotics and eating better, or probiotics that can be obtained cheaply. We haven't had a cover-up yet, so we're going to skip that one. Bad science? I haven't encountered it. Seems like the stuff being done into genetically engineered microbes and postbiotics is really interesting and potentially very helpful for people with different conditions, whether they are digestive or mental health conditions. Seems like there's quite a bit of good science going on, but it's science for profit. It's not science for benefiting the most people. It's science for benefiting people in ways that money will be spent to the companies doing the science to make millions of dollars, or billions of dollars. Most likely, if they're putting billions in, they're expecting to get billions out. So how do we get science to work for all of us instead of working for investors? We're going to have to change the economic incentives. We're going to have to change things so that people get paid to do science that helps everybody. And some of that happens through the National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health. They fund a lot of research that is aimed at helping everybody. People say, you know, I want to study this thing, and if it turns out to work, it could benefit a huge part of the population. And they say, oh yeah, that does seem like a good thing to study, and it looks like you have a good idea that is actually workable, so we'll pay you some money to go study that. But these groups also, well, the NIH, National Institutes of Health, also pays people to fund research that can be translated into businesses. So the NIH does fund some basic research that can be aimed at just understanding science or just helping people broadly, but it also funds research that is aimed at turning it into a business and making money off of the advances. This is not all bad. But when the economic incentives are first about making money and second about helping people, then when we get first is science for making money. And second, we get science for helping people. We're also going to have to deal with intellectual property laws if we want things to change. The intellectual property laws have been moving more and more towards favoring monopoly and people getting some technology and then keeping a monopoly on selling it, which drives up costs for a long time, long beyond what they need to make back the money from their research. And that's the way intellectual property law has been going for a long time. And if we want to change it so that science is done for more for everybody and benefits more people, we'll have to break the monopolies that happen or shorten the time that monopolies happen with intellectual property. And some things are pretty questionable. People are doing things like patenting genes that they didn't create. They just find them in a microbe first and they patent it. And they say, we can use this gene to make a product, and so it's legal to patent it. and no one else can make any products from it, even though it's been there in nature forever. So there's some really questionable things, but it's tricky. It's not simple. It's not just an easy thing to say, oh, we'll change them this way and it'll fix everything. It's complicated, and if you want to work on that in politics or in law, spend some time to learn what you're talking about. But generally, intellectual property law has been working for money, not for people. And so we can afford to go in the other direction. Artificial intelligence. There are too many possibilities to list. I'm sure you hear about artificial intelligence all the time. Machine learning has been getting better for rapidly over the last decade, and we call that artificial intelligence. It's not really independent artificial intelligence, but it is something that can do things that we don't predict, that we don't even know exactly how it comes up with its answers. So it is in some ways independent of our thinking, and it can be used for all sorts of things. It's already in use. They're already people making money off of artificial intelligence. As a result of these large language models that have become publicly available, the demand for computing resources has skyrocketed just in the last years. Companies and governments are selling models. They're racing to make the best AI models to do the things that they want so that they can get ahead of the other companies that are going to use AI to improve their competitiveness, and so they can get ahead of the other countries that are going to use AI to help them with dominating other countries in ways that people do through intelligence services and technology and money and whatever it is. So AI is a big race, and resources for AI, for making models and using AI models, have grown immensely. So there is a lot of money in it already. And cover-ups are already happening. Online tech companies use artificial intelligence to improve their advertising and engagement. It's good for business. It's bad for users. And we know that groups like Facebook and Google have put profits ahead of what's good for their users many times already. People working inside these companies have left and said, we looked into it and we found that social media, the way it is now, is really harmful for teenage girls. It's harmful for other people too, but this is one specific thing. They found it's really harmful for teenage girls. And they told their company this, and the company said, okay, we're not going to have you research it anymore, and we're going to keep doing things the way we're doing them. Artificial intelligence is being used by one company to set rent prices. They say, we are going to use artificial intelligence models these machine learning models to figure out what the best rent prices are in your area to make the most money. And they sell this service to big companies with lots of rental units and say, okay, we'll tell you what the best price is to make the most money. You have to promise you won't sell for less than that price. So the companies say, sure, because they know that the other big companies are going to do the same thing and nobody's going to try to undersell them. And the result has been rental prices going up and up. So AI is being used for price fixing without the companies themselves having to collude directly with each other to fix prices. And without a program saying, okay, how can we fix prices? The program is saying, how can we get the most money for investors? Well, the answer is price fixing. That's how you get the most money for investors. You get everybody renting units to agree to higher prices, as high as the market can absolutely take, and not worrying if some people have to be homeless as a result or unhoused as a result. And so AI is being used in ways that are good for people with money, bad for people struggling. The actor and writer strikes, where they were saying, wait, you've got to make us some promises in the television and film industry. Part of that was big entertainment conglomerates wanting to use AI to replace some of the jobs that actors and writers and other people in the entertainment industry do, so that they could make more money for investors and for CEOs. It's not about doing the best art. Now, whether you think this is good or not, I personally think it's bad for our entertainment. These models that are about, let's make the entertainment that makes the most money, and when that's the priority, we get entertainment that makes the most money. When the priority is, let's make good entertainment that makes us enough money, then the incentives are towards making good entertainment, and we get higher quality art. So that's a personal opinion judgment. But AI being used in a way that's good for making money, not good for art. Law enforcement using AI. Israel has been using AI to identify people crossing borders that it identifies as dangerous, that the government of Israel identifies as dangerous. They've been selling this technology to other countries and law enforcement agencies in other places. And these machine learning models get things wrong sometimes. We know of cases where, you can look for the news on some really ugly specific cases, but beyond that, they have built-in prejudice. These models are built using data sets that include all of the biases and prejudices of past law enforcement actions. So when law enforcement in the past has been racist, the machine learning models learn the racism and reproduce it. So there's some big problems that law enforcement and governments wanting to use this and the companies selling it don't want to admit to. They don't want to say, look, our machine learning model that is not human, that's just following rules, and the rules we give it aren't racist. They don't want to say the rules we give it aren't racist, but the data we give it to make its decisions on are. So AI is also being used for political misinformation. It's being used in Russia to create fake news to send to the US and on social media in the US to convince people of untrue things. And most of it, people just ignore and are like, that's nothing. But every once in a while, something goes viral, and a lie becomes the truth for a segment of Americans. And with AI, the number of fake web pages, fake social media messages that can be created has just gone up, has grown exponentially. And so now they can throw out more things, and more things end up going viral just because there's so much more out there. So it's being used for political misinformation. It also requires huge amounts of resources, especially in things like energy, like rare metals that are being mined in countries around the world that are mostly in poorer countries that don't get the benefits of AI, but they get their rare metal resources taken out and the health costs of mining that go with them increased. And they use a lot of fresh water for cooling. They need fresh, clean water to cool these things, and they're willing to take the water in places that don't have enough and that need it, but rich people can afford to buy the water, and the poor people have a harder time saying, wait, no, don't give them that water. We need it to live. So all these things get hidden. For example, Google does it by going and building a computing center in Chile. And fortunately, at least for now, a group of Chileans said, wait, no, they can't start that center up because we're in drought, severe drought, and it's going to use a whole bunch of water that we need to live. So people cover these things up in different ways. They share things like this. This is a very level-seeming view of the impact of AI and robotics on jobs. I'll summarize it. You can pause and read it if you want, but you'll get new jobs with new skill sets. High-skilled jobs or high-skilled employees are more likely to be needed. Mid-skilled employees that do repeatable things that machines can be trained to do will not be needed. So you'll need more skills to run the AI. Also need fewer people to run the AI. You'd still need people for some things that are not very repetitive, but here's an estimate: 400 to 800 million. That's 500 million people could lose jobs by 2030 to AI if they aren't prepared to think into the future. Well, whose job is it to prepare people to think into the future? Okay, economies that don't have lots of money won't be able to pay for the AI and the robots. So rich countries will grow faster. Poor countries will be kept out of the AI and robotics growth. And we'll need an entirely different education system for some things. Okay, this is all seems very level-headed. But then when you look at it and say, okay, it's not just rich countries that are going to grow, it's rich people who can buy the AI and buy the robots. Those are the people who will grow in money. And people who didn't have the money to get the fancy new education, people who were kept out of the fancy new education by their economic and social status, they're going to lose jobs at the same time that the rich are going to make more and more and more money without doing more and more and more work just by buying AI and robots. So all of this hides that reality, that AI and robotics in our world with economics and politics the way they are right now is going to lead to rich people getting richer, poor people getting poorer, rich countries getting richer, poor countries getting poorer, and just bigger and bigger differences. And so this very level-sounding thing, as the rich people exploit the resources of poor people and poor countries, this very level-headed sounding thing makes it sound like, well, we just need to change and adjust. We do need to change and adjust. And just saying no AI, no robotics probably isn't the way we want to go. Is AI helping us? Is it going to help us? Which experts should we believe? Ask who will profit. If only the rich are profiting from a particular thing, and only the scientists that they pay are profiting from a particular thing, history says we should be skeptical of them. Who will be hurt? If there's a particular group who's being hurt by a scientific development, chances are we should pay attention if we want to be on the side of truth and of people. And not say, well, yeah, mining lithium in Argentina and China and cobalt in the Congo, yeah, that hurts some people there. But it's okay if they stay poor and get sick while it makes the world a lot more money. Well, is that what we want? Does it really have to be this way? Does artificial intelligence and the business resulting from it have to be aimed at making money first? Or can we aim it at helping people first and making money as a secondary consequence? I believe we can. I believe we can direct our scientific efforts towards helping the world more and first, with making money being a side benefit. But if we want to do that, we have to do things like vote. Get out and vote. I vote in Georgia. 80% of the time, my votes lose. But I'm on the public record as being someone who goes out and votes, and politicians look at that. When things get competitive, they look to see, okay, who votes regularly. So I vote in most local elections, even when there's just one candidate on the ballot. Sometimes I just don't fill in anybody because I may or may not like the candidate, or I may or may not know anything about them. But I get on the record as voting, and when they see that people like me vote, then they pay attention to us. Vote for things that promote democracy, not oligarchy. Since 2010, when the Supreme Court said, oh, you can't limit spending on political campaigns and ads, you have to let people with money spend as much as they want, and they don't even have to say who they are. They can do it in secret. They can make their donations secretly and pay for these super PACs that can give money to help any campaign they want. Since then, by 2012, after that, 2 years after that, already 2/3 of the policies, when there was a conflict between what most people wanted and what rich lobbying groups wanted, the rich lobbying groups by 2012 were winning 2/3 of the time. And the majority of people were getting what they wanted and was good for the majority of people only 1/3 of the time. So we live in a country where money has more influence than our votes. But we can work to change that. Our votes do still matter. Please respect people and not money. You've grown up in a world that thinks about economics as being good for people. If the world's making lots of money, that's good for people. And so we've got lots of policies and lots of ways of thinking that are, yeah, if it makes money, it is good for people. Please think about people first. Think about your family, think about your neighbors, think about your classmates, think about the world first and say, is this good for people? Keep learning. Keep learning. You all are learning great things. You're working towards jobs that will let you take care of yourselves, take care of your family, your communities. Keep it up. And imagine a better world, because we can make a world that's even better than it is now. With the many beautiful things in it now, we can make it a world that humans can live in for many generations to come and continue to find beauty and excitement and joy and happiness and social connection for generations to come. So imagine that world. And I hope I get to meet some of you in person over the years. And I wish you great success in your lives and in finishing up this course. And that's it for me for this semester.